Coming up on First at 4, state leaders take one more step toward banning a popular social media app on government devices. Plus, more than 22,000 people have now died in Turkey and Syria due to Monday's devastating earthquakes.
And continuing to watch the potential for some rain changing to snow as we head towards the end of the weekend. Latest coming up as Mountain News First at 4 starts now.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News First at 4.
Good afternoon, I'm Steve Hensley. First at 4, a popular app could soon be banned on state government devices. Today, the Kentucky Senate passed a bill to ban TikTok for government employees and their state-owned and operated devices. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on what was done and what senators say is the message it sends.
This bill easily cleared a Senate committee earlier this week. Today, it had no trouble in the full House. In fact, there was absolutely no debate, and it cleared the state Senate 31-0.
We need to protect the data that exists on state government devices.
Just as there was a lot of concern when a large balloon flew over the United States, there's also concern of another way China is getting into the United States. State and federal officials say that's through the popular TikTok app and through what's called data mining. Senator Robbie Mills sponsored the bill to keep the app from state devices because of what he and others have said is a national security concern.
TikTok is part of a larger Chinese government effort to expand extraterritorial control over digital platforms worldwide.
This may be the tip of the iceberg, or at least a trend going forward. As it was stated today on the Senate floor, Senator Robbie Mills says that the FBI has even asked Google and Apple to consider removing this app entirely because of the patterns of data stealing. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
Phil, thank you. The House will now take up Senate Bill 20. We want to go to a developing story now we are following that may or may not have something to do with China. White House officials say an unknown object flying in U.S. airspace off the coast of Alaska was shot down. Officials say the object posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flights. Now, President Biden ordered the military to take it down. It was described as roughly the size of a small car. Now, we don't know anything else about it yet. Of course, this comes just after the U.S. shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon on Saturday. Now, we hope to talk to our WYMT White House correspondent John Decker about this and what he's learning in just a few minutes, so stay right there, more to come. Substance abuse, specifically abuse of prescription drugs along with heroin, methamphetamine, and illicit fentanyl, remain one of the most critical public health and safety issues Kentucky is facing. Perry County Sheriff Joe Ingles says fentanyl-related cases are currently the county's #1 problem.
The biggest problem that it's causing is death. I mean, it's just absolutely killing a lot of people in our communities. It's a lot more people than people would realize, but it's really killing a lot of people in our communities. It's our major problem here right now.
Sheriff Ingles says many of the deaths are caused due to fentanyl being mixed with meth, a common drug in eastern Kentucky. Family members and fans of Johnson County native Loretta Lynn are still mourning her death 4 months later. She died last October at the age of 90. We had the chance to sit down with one of her daughters, Peggy Lynn, this week. She tells us Loretta wanted her kids by her side and was full of energy the day before she died. She said Loretta died in her sleep and looked like a sleeping angel.
I believe that my mom is all around me and in me, and you know, she gave me all the tools I need. But that's the one thing that you really have to come to terms with is, you know, the person who loved you most in the world is gone.
Peggy tells us a month before Loretta died, one of her favorite things to eat was banana pudding and watermelon. You can hear more from Peggy Lynn about her legendary mother's career and her final hours. It's a story you won't want to miss tonight at 6.
Well, looking much cooler and a whole lot less windy out there today compared to the near 50-mile-per-hour gusts we saw yesterday and the highs near 70. we've taken a dip on the thermometer as we've gone through the day. Here's a look outside of Pine Mountain along US 119. Yeah, we've seen off and on cloud cover today, but we've seen some sunshine as well. It's not been a bad day out there. It's just a little bit closer to average. That's all. Here's the view outside of WYMT. And yes, we've got that kind of filtered sunshine out there. It's not really overcast, but it's that kind of thin cloud cover working on through in the mid-levels there. 46 current reading here. Everybody is in the middle and upper 40s, even a few lower 50s out there. And you're thinking, it's still above average, but we're 20 to 25 degrees cooler than this time yesterday, and yet still somehow technically above average. If that's not Eastern Kentucky weather in early February, I really don't know what is. We continue to see some clouds working on through the region, but quiet weather continues tonight and into tomorrow. So as we head through tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, light winds, lows falling into the lower 30s. Coming up in a few minutes, I'll have the details on when we could see perhaps a wintry visitor by the end of the weekend. That's in a few. Steve?
Evan, thank you. The death toll has surpassed 22,000 now, and it continues to rise in Turkey and Syria following Monday's devastating earthquakes and aftershocks. The damage is so vast it covers an area about the size of England, but there is still reason for hope among the survivors. CBS's Tina Kraus reports.
Amid all the misery, there are fleeting moments of joy in Turkey's earthquake zone. Onlookers and soldiers cheered and cried as rescuers pulled this boy and his sister from a collapsed building Friday. The siblings had been buried for more than 100 hours. Rescuers saved this 10-day-old baby who was trapped under a collapsed building. They also rescued his mother. And this 36-year-old woman survived under the rubble after she endured bitter cold and many aftershocks. Her grateful father says he had given up all hope. But time is running out. International teams of rescuers are racing the clock to find survivors. Some of those left homeless are now living in this tent city inside a sports stadium. Turkey's president toured the damage Friday. He called the earthquake one of the greatest disasters his nation has faced in its history. And he admits his government lagged in its initial response. Friday, Syria's president made his first public appearance in hard-hit areas since the disaster. The Syrian aid group, the White Helmets, describes the situation there as absolutely catastrophic. Tina Kraus, CBS News.
The United Nations Refugee Agency estimates the earthquake may have left as many as 5.3 million people in Syria homeless. Even before the quake, nearly 7 million had been displaced because of the ongoing war in Syria. In his first televised comment since the quake, Syria's president has criticized Western countries, saying they have, quote, have no regard for the human condition. Bashar al-Assad and his wife Asma have been visiting different sites affected by the earthquake and visited survivors at a hospital in Aleppo. Syria's state-run media and government officials have pinned the lack of humanitarian aid and hindered rescue equipment on U.S. and EU sanctions. Several countries have sent aid to Assad's government, and several international humanitarian organizations have distributed aid across government territory. Only 2 UN aid convoys have entered rebel-controlled northwest Syria since the earthquake hit on Monday. The UN says nearly 11 million people have been affected by the disaster in Syria. Coming up on First at 4, history will be made on Sunday when 2 black quarterbacks take the field in Arizona.
And speaking of Sunday, we're watching the potential for some wintry shenanigans heading into this weekend. Breaking it all down coming up.